FXX KWJJ HD2 Portland, an Odyssey sports station. Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, 5 bowl games on the slate for college football today. First up, the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. That's currently underway. Navy is beating Oklahoma 21-14. Only a couple minutes left to go in that one. Then at 12:30, Georgia Tech takes on Vanderbilt in the Birmingham Bowl. Georgia Tech is favored by 3. That total is set at 49.5. At 4, the AutoZone Liberty Bowl kicks off as Texas Tech takes on Arkansas. Texas Tech is favored by 2.5. The total is set at 51.5. Coverage for that game starts at 3:30 with a pregame show on 910 ESPN Portland. At 5, the Washington State Cougars take on the 21st-ranked Syracuse Orange in the DirecTV Holiday Bowl. With all the turnover in Pullman, the Orange are favored by 18. Total is set at 59.5 in that one. The action wraps up tonight at 7:30 with USC taking on Texas A&M in the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl. Texas A&M is favored by 3. The total is set at 53.5. That game can also be found on 910 ESPN Portland. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Jump back to earlier parts of your favorite fan shows on the
Good afternoon! Welcome in, Danny and Dusty, on this beautiful Friday afternoon. No, Danny, tis just me and Will Ortner back up in the studio. This is a Eugene edition. I'm down. For those YouTube animals or Twitch.tv animals that are watching the stream, you have Autzen Stadium behind you. This is where I usually do my Wednesday shows during the week, but because of the travel schedule, because of the Rose Bowl coming up, I am down here in Eugene on a Friday, and I gotta tell you, I'm excited. I'm starting to get into the quarterfinal mode, Mr. Will Ortner. I'm here for it all.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. I'm already, although the bowl games are starting to get good now,
yeah.
So maybe I'm okay with waiting a little bit for the college football playoff.
Can I tell you this, sir?
Yeah?
I finally started getting into bowl season. The
Same.
college football playoff, the 12-team playoff, it was an afterthought, the rest of the bowl games. The first few handful of bowls, am I a sicko and did I still watch? Absolutely I did, because I am a sicko and I'm going to watch those games. But I really started getting into the bowls, I wanted to say over the weekend. It just feels like with the holidays, it's all just mashing together. Mm-hmm. But really, it was like the 26th you really started getting into the bowls. And then last night, we had an 8-overtime thriller. Let's go. Yeah. Let's go. Toledo. Maction.
How many times did they storm the field? Was it 4 times? 3 times?
It happens, though, and I don't blame them one bit. I mean, them's the rules. You think you win a game, you go ahead and you storm that field, especially when you are from the MAC conference. I am all for it. Everybody that is criticized and laughed at me for watching far too much Maction on a Tuesday and a Wednesday night, I will shove this in your face. Toledo beat Pitt 48-46 in 6 overtimes last night. Let's go.
It's beautiful. You remember?
Let's go.
There was a point in time when Pitt was undefeated. Just remember that. There was a point in time where people were talking about Pitt like, do they maybe get in the playoffs?
No, absolutely not. They don't. Hey, we are coming off, though, the Christmas holiday. Everybody have a good Christmas? You have a good Christmas, Ortner?
No, I'm fat again.
Uh-oh.
I don't like it.
Did you?
I'm in a fast right now.
You did what? Oh no, we're gonna get grumpy, Ortner. You can't start a fast when you have a long day of radio.
No, I'm fine. I can start a fast. I already worked out. I've been up since 5, dude.
So
we're grinding.
How much did you gain?
15 pounds.
Since when?
When was New Year's Eve? Is that Tuesday?
Wait,
So
New
since
Year's Eve?
Tuesday.
That's next Tuesday. Christmas Eve?
Christmas Eve. I put
You
on
gained
15
15 pounds since Tuesday? And I heard you, Will Ortner,
Yeah.
bragging about your weight loss journey.
I was 229 on Monday morning,
Yeah.
which was the first time I had been 229 probably since 15 or 16 years old.
No way.
And I got on the scale this morning because I was like, I knew it was bad. You
Yeah.
know, when you just sit there and there were cookies and
Yeah.
peanut butter pie
Oh,
and
yeah.
cherry pie and apple pie, and they were all just kinds of goodies and treats. They were all out and they were everywhere.
You
And
just
I have
named a bunch
no
of pie, dude.
Dude, I have no self-control. No, I had like 8 prime rib sandwiches. I had 8 lasagnas.
Oh,
I was
Will.
eating breakfast. I think I ate a whole plate of deviled eggs. It was ridiculous.
Oh,
And it was to the point,
my.
too, where I knew I wasn't hungry. Every
Yeah.
single bite, like beforehand, I had to do a big like, oh, God. And I just kept eating. I just kept putting it in my face hole. And
Yep.
when I got up today, I was like, I'm going to look at the scale. It's probably like 8 or 9 pounds.
Nope.
You're going to go to the gym and it's leg day and you'll walk a little bit and it'll all be okay. And I saw 245 on the scale and I've never felt grosser.
Wait, Will, that's 16 pounds, bud.
That was 229.9.
Okay. Okay. But you saw 229. That's the
I
important
saw
thing. That's the only thing that
229. I
matters.
saw 229.
Where were you at your heaviest?
315.
315. Wow. So you lost like a 5th grader. You've lost a 5th grader since your playing weight.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm not going to lie, dude. I'm contemplating the New Year's resolution, one of them being get to 215. Just to
Oh, really?
just to be like I did 100, like I got rid of 100 pounds. I don't
got
know how
rid of 100
sustainable that is, you know? But
not.
I think I could get it.
Not after this. Boy. Well, Merry Christmas to you. You had a great Christmas, it sounds like.
Too good. Too good. To the point where I only had I tweeted out like Merry Christmas, I only had 1 plate for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
That's because I had like 8 plates of cookies before and after.
Yikes, bud.
It's
Yikes.
not good.
Well,
Yeah.
hey, it'll come off quick, is what I'm going to tell you. But keep fighting the good fight, my man. I just hope that you don't get into that grumpiness during a fast that you know is going to happen. When is the last time you ate food?
I had a protein shake this morning, so maybe that doesn't count as a fast. My last food eaten would have been last night. I had 2 pieces
boy.
of peanut butter pie and some banana bread.
That's how you ended your binge was
Well, there was a gluten-free option
Oh,
and
boy.
a gluten option, and I had to
Oh, boy.
figure out if the gluten option
Hey.
was better than the gluten-free.
well, you carry 245 very well, so
You
just
haven't
to
seen my
keep
belly.
that in mind.
Why do you
Keep
think I
that
got
in
the
mind.
black sweatshirt on, buddy?
Yeah, slimming.
I'm a
It's
veteran
slimming.
of this game. I'm well known around
Right.
these fat guy parts.
We are now in the Hara household coming out of Christmas. I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas and happy start to Hanukkah if you celebrate Hanukkah out there because that started on the 25th as well. So happy Hanukkah. My wife and daughter went to a little Hanukkah party, or not party, I say party. They went to their friend's house and they go through like a little, origins of Hanukkah every year and kind of, get the Christian kids into Hanukkah and the traditions. So happy Hanukkah to those that celebrate. That's underway. I hope everybody had a great Christmas as well. We are now a video game house.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just bragged about not being one, too.
Well, I know because you can't give up the goods, right? You can't give up the goods. And I knew it was coming to an end. We got my son a Nintendo Switch, which those are rad. Mario Kart.
You
I
still
blew
got
his
it?
mind, and he had no idea what was coming. Because I even gave him the, so how do you go? Which was actually a legitimate question at the beginning because I was like, I haven't played this in so long. They may have switched up the buttons on me. It gets me in all the video games. But I still got it, man. It is like riding a bike playing Mario Kart. And he dropped it. Dad, have you played this before? You're like really good at this. I was like, beginner's luck. And then I hit the shortcut on the Rainbow Road, and it was game over, buddy.
I love that you still remember that. I told you this. I think when we talked about this on Monday, I said there's one game that you never lose it, and it's Mario Kart.
And I believe that with my whole heart now. You know, I was hopping into corners, and I'm just dominating Mario Kart, and it left him in awe. And it's like one of those things when you are a parent, you get these small victories where your kids are just amazed by you. And we all had those moments, like with our dad, right? Like, Dad picks up something heavy. You're like, whoa. He's like Superman over here. That was Mario Kart, and I've just been crushing it, and I've been teaching my son the tricks of Mario Kart. And I got to tell you, it's rewarding. Now I just need to get him to stop his blossoming video game addiction. Because there's a reason why I'm really good at Mario Kart. It's because I put in the hours. Malcolm Gladwell would be very pleased with the hours that I put in. I've got my 10,000 hours in on Mario Kart. Geez. I can see he's already careening down that path of he's going to be addicted to Mario Kart as well.
Well, how old is he? How old is your kiddo? He's like a second to fourth grader,
he's second
right?
grader. He's second grader. He's 7. He turns 8 next month. But,
I think you planned this right, though, because he's going to get – first of all, he's going to get the games, but it sounds like you're going more of the younger games, which smart move. By the way, there's nothing worse as a teacher than a kid dropping a word that he shouldn't drop and then being like, hey, don't say that word. Well, they say it in my video game.
Yeah.
No GTA for the 7-year-olds. But I think you planned it right, because if you wait too long and he's like 11 or 12, he's going to finally, like, as soon as he gets the video game console, he's just going to play all day. That's all he's going to want to do because he finally gets it. If you give it to him too young, it's all he's going to know. You've now put it in, like, the perfect time frame of, like, his buddies can come over, they can play a couple of games, but at the same time, he's going to be like, I kind of want to go outside. I want to go do other things.
Yeah, his mom's a teacher, so this is all going to be a rude awakening when it's like, no, you're not playing. Yeah, nope. And they have these things now where you can like set up like on their thing, like they can only play a certain amount, and then the game's just like, deuces, I'm turning off. We didn't have that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Mario Kart and Street Fighter, I was just holed up playing those hours on end, not going to bed. So, yeah, we're in it. We're in it right now. And as Rufio points out on the Vancouver Ford text line, 503-864-6326, you got to establish digital dominance, just like one-on-one in the driveway. Yeah. This one, though, no tears. There have been tears over one-on-one in the driveway. You know, he starts saying, you can't block my shot, and then I send one across the cul-de-sac, and he starts crying, and Mom's yelling at me, and I'm like, well, he told me I couldn't block his shot. I had to then block his shot. Like, it has to happen. We all learn those lessons. Those are valuable lessons. Yeah. When you tell me, Dad, you can't block my shot, I'm too good, you need to get humbled a little bit, and those things happen from time to time. Does he get one by on me? Yeah, he does. He does every now and then. But, you know, sometimes these things got to happen. I will say, the Mario Kart, we're not there. We're not there. He knows he needs to sharpen up his game before he can start mouthing off about the Mario Kart.
He might never get past you on Mario Kart because it's a video game. You can always keep playing that. But eventually, just so you know,
I know.
Those like every once in a while that he gets one by you, they don't stay every once in a while.
I know. But I know that Father Time is undefeated, and then it's going to happen one of these days. The day that's going to be hard, though, is when he's actually stronger than me. That one's gonna be a tough one.
I'll tell you right now, from the look on my dad's face, it hurts. It hurts.
Dude, it hurts.
And
it's gonna hurt.
You know what? Sometimes if you have a child that's much larger than you, it comes faster than you think.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. And that's gonna be the tough pill to swallow. So, but right now, Mario Kart, I'm in. I'm back. I'm so back. It was it's been a great few days. This text: my son got Connect 4 for Christmas, beat him 12 times in 10 minutes, and finally had to let him win so he would actually play again. Thoughts? Yeah, I think that you asserted the dominance over him.
That dad rocks.
You do need, like, every now and then you gotta give a win. You know, or you're just gonna break them. You're just gonna break them. So every now and then it's okay. You let one slip and then you give them the, hey, nice job. You got me on that one. You got me on that one. But no mercy. There should be a little bit of mercy. There should be a little bit of mercy, and that's okay to have a little bit of mercy. What you can't let him do is, in my opinion, never be the parent that is always let him win, because that's just an unrealistic expectation, right?
No, that's poor parenting.
Yeah. Like when we are doing BP, you know, and I'm throwing pitches to my son, you know, he'll get a little confident and he's just roping them, and then you gotta throw a couple by him, you know, because that's what happens in baseball. You're not gonna hit every ball. So sometimes, you know, the heat's gonna get dialed up and that pitcher finds one, and he's not just gonna be grooving them all day long. So these are things that you gotta. Sure, assert the dominance, let them win, just like when they're honing their own skills. Also, let them know, still got it a little bit. I still got it. You're not gonna bat 1,000 against me in BP.
You're not gonna win every time. I'll let you know right now. I obviously don't have kids, but I do have little
none
cousins.
that you know about, of course.
I'm well aware of what's going on.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm just saying, I got little cousins, and tell you right now, they never get any by me. If I don't want to, I'll dominate their dojo, and I'll pick their sport.
There's a line of delineation here. You also, as an uncle or a cousin that is far older,
yep,
it is upon you to be fun cousin or the funkle, right? Mm-hmm. But also, all bets are off because you can just send those kids home, right? You don't have to deal with bedtime.
That's right.
You know, you can just dominate them in any sport or game, and that's okay. But then you can smooth it over by just, you know, pumping them full of sugar, which if there was any left after you ate it all, Will, you could just get them ramped up on sugar, and all is well in the world. As a parent, you can't really do that because there's going to be hell to pay on the other end of this thing. You know, that's the good part about being the older cousin or the fun uncle, is that you could dominate them, but then you could smooth it over by just all the candy in the world.
100%.
You can't do that really as a parent.
100%, dude.
Can't really do that as a parent. So good on you for continuing to go ahead and beat your younger cousins. That's totally okay. That's totally okay.
And I'll pick their sport. You want to play some volleyball? Let's go.
Oh, all right. Now there will be a time though, Will. They're gonna get you, and this is the other thing. You have to be ready for them to take it out on you like you took it out on them.
Here's the thing, though. They're sweet little angels.
Yeah.
So it'll be much worse because they'll be like, "It's okay, Big Will. You had your time."
Yeah. Like, this is the hard part, is that I got a nephew who is a big boy. He's a big boy.
Nice.
And he's a freshman in high school. He's an O-lineman. And so now I'm at the point where, am I going to continue to wrestle him? Because it has been dominance. But my nephew, he's getting to that point. He knows how to use leverage now. He weighs way more than I do. And I don't know if I want to hit the wrestling mat with him anymore. Hey, Uncle Dusty's not above fighting unfair. I'll go dirty. You know, my name is Dusty. I'll go dirty. I'll fight dirty in this one. He may get a fish hook. He may get a crossface. I don't know, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to win. So I just need to make sure he knows the rules of engagement before we start. Is that if this thing's going sideways on me, you know what's coming. I'm going to teach you. I've taught you how to wrestle. I've taught you never leave an open hook. Yeah, you may get a crossface if things start going wrong for me. I may try to anchor that fish hook and get you on your back. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see. We'll see how much leverage you have. All right. So that's our sentimental family Christmas segment.
Kicking our cousin's ass.
It's okay to fish hook the nephew. It's okay to fish hook the cousin if you're losing. If you're losing. All right? All right. Let's get to it today. We got a lot that we need to get to. This is my last show before I head down to Pasadena for the Rose Bowl. So we will talk Rose Bowl, Oregon, Ohio State, the rematch of an all-timer here in Autzen Stadium back in October. We've got a ton of NFL to get to because we're already 3 games into the rearview mirror for Week 17 of the NFL season. And then the Seahawks played last night. We watched that game.
Yep.
We watched that game. Not a pretty football game. It was not a pretty football game. We will discuss it, though. We will discuss it because something happened in that game that has not happened in a very long time. And then I think where we got to start, though, Blazers get a game winner from Scoot Henderson last night. They knock off the Utah Jazz, avenging that 40-point defeat with a 2-point victory in Moda. Danny and Dusty on the Fan.
Round 1 drama at the
Blazers pick up a win last night in Moda Center to improve to 10-20 on the season. They're still not a great basketball team. But last night was one of those games where you take a win when you can get it in seeing a little bit of improvement and seeing a little bit of progress, especially after what I still qualify as the most depressing loss of the Blazers rebuild. The 40-point loss to Utah earlier when they were just a 4-win team. You want to see a little bit of fire coming out from the hometown team, and I think what we saw last night is if you're talking about, all right, what are the building blocks going to look like moving forward? Wins and losses don't really matter. You want to see improvement. You want to see guys playing hard. Chauncey Billups not with the team due to the death of his grandmother, and look, that I feel awful for Chauncey Billups and his family, and him not being on the team or on the bench. That didn't dictate that game one way or the other, because what you saw was players finding a rhythm finally, and we've seen this build up, and this was happening last week as well. And we talked about this with Danny, and Danny was really complimentary of Shaedon Sharpe in the aggressiveness, the control that he's playing with. And he went off last night, man. 27 points on 11 of 18 shooting and coming up with big plays when it mattered for the Blazers. Those are things that you go, yes, we may actually finally be seeing Shaedon Sharpe turning a corner with the development. A lot of this is going to be, health. Can he stay healthy? Does he stay healthy? And does he continue to build on what we see in these flashes and in these spurts? But this isn't just a one-off game for Shaedon. 5 of 10 from 3. That is new and great, and you love to see that. But 27 points, and just the way that he was able to keep Utah on his heels, because he is one of those guys who, we talk about this all the time, one of the biggest issues with the Blazers is their lack of creators. And he was a creator last night. And you've heard about this throughout, the offseason in his summer runs when he'd go down and play with other NBA players, whether it was in LA or New York or wherever. You heard continually Shaedon Sharpe is looking like that dude that everybody thought he could be. Again, injury happens, and that kind of slows anybody seeing the development that everybody was talking about all summer long. But you saw it last night, and you saw it in a big way from Shaedon Sharpe. You add on to that, Deni Avdija comes out, and he drops 27 of his own, and he was amazing playmaking for the Portland Trail Blazers. And it wasn't just a barrage of three-pointers. Deni was doing it every which way, man. I mean, getting to the free throw line and kind of finding those spots in the soft spots of Utah. His ability that everybody had talked about of what he could be, not this year, but moving forward, and what he was last year for the Wizards. He was really good in that starting lineup. He went back to the bench, and it was kind of a bit of a roller coaster again. Well, he had a game where he popped last night. And then to cap it off with Scoot Henderson hitting a game winner, there's been a lot of reasons to criticize Scoot Henderson in his first, year and a half almost of playing for the Portland Trail Blazers. That was a beautiful play, a little step back and create some space, knock it down with 0.1 to go. Those are just good things to see. Now, Blazers did have a 5-point lead with 40 seconds to go and needed a game winner at the end, but that's who this team is, right? They are still far from being a good team, but what you saw last night was some of the building block plays, and or building block performances from players. And not a lot of guys are going to be on this roster moving forward. What this roster looks like come February, come next year, when it is starting to become, all right, we're ramping this thing up and turning the corner. Hopefully, when you're banking on ping pong balls, who the hell knows what's going to happen? That was a sight for sore eyes to see the Blazers win in that fashion yesterday.
Well, it felt like the perfect Blazer game too, right? Because it's Sharpe who's showing you how well he can play. It's Henderson showing you how well he can play. It's Avdija showing you how well he can play. It wasn't like oh, Anthony had a big game, like what you saw a lot last year, or like Ayton had a big game, or obviously last year, but Brogdon had a big game. It felt like when you won close games, it was guys who you didn't factor into the long-term plans of the Blazers as an organization that were making the big plays, that were being the catalyst for that success. And finally, it's the young guys. I think the most impressive stat line from Sharp in this game, he didn't go to the free throw line.
No.
He has no free throws.
Nope.
It wasn't like he was a foul merchant in this one. He was attacking, and yeah, he's getting buckets. You have to assume in most situations, in most games, he's going to get fouled at least once when he's attacking downhill like that, because three-pointers can be kind of fickle. Some days you're going to have a lot that go in, some days you're not.
Especially with this team.
But I just love that it's finally the guys who factor in long term. And there's another guy in Donovan Clingan who has showed signs of having key moments or being that rim protector that you wanted, and he's just coming back slowly from his injury that he had with his knee injury. So I love that you've seen the signs, and it feels like it's the younger guys when you have these games where, hey, it's close, Scoot's going to get the last shot, or hey, it's close because of what Advia and what Sharp were able to do in the second, third, and fourth quarters lead up to that final shot.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's 0.1 second to go, but I know I'm not alone in this, is that last night, knowing that Donovan Clingan was on the floor just standing in front of the rim, I was like, dude, they're not going to be able to tip that in. I know that Lamar and Calabro brought up, like, hey, watch out for Lauri Markkanen. He's going to come try and fly in and tip this thing in. But it was like, finally like this, oh, they're good. They're
right.
He's not gonna let them get to a point where they're going to tip this ball. And he ended up snaring the final heave from Utah. Mm-hmm. So Donovan Clingan, I love him. And the injury, we saw that the block streak ended when he came back from injury. I really like what he has and what he's going to hopefully grow into as the Blazers big moving forward. Good win last night for the Blazers. 122-120, and then as Danny said, guys, the losses are going to come. All right? They're going to start racking up. This was about, I think Danny at the very beginning of the year said through the first 30 games they're going to be like 8-22, you know? And it's not going to be good. He talked about this in the first couple weeks of the season. They got 2 unexpected wins, where it's like, whoa, where'd these come from? So they're 10-20 right now. They are just barely above the expectation of where they should have been at the beginning of the year. They picked up another one of those unexpected wins over Denver, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. But you also lost by 40 to the Utah Jazz. So it's going to even out at some point. Now you're staring down the next handful of games. Dallas without Luka. Philly, which got a big win over the Celtics on Christmas Day. And then you go to the Lakers on January 2nd down in L.A. So any Duck fans going down to the Rose Bowl, if you're sticking around, Blazers in L.A. for the Lakers on January 2nd. And then they go to the Milwaukee Bucks after that on the 4th. They're going to start coming in droves, these losses. Take what that was. It was a nice little win for the hometown team in the Portland Trail Blazers. All right, 503-864-6326. What the heck happened? That just happened. Next on The Fan, here's Will.
This is a Football Friday edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Sports Center is brought to you by Red Tail Golf Center's holiday sale. It's going on now with up to 50% off all your holiday golfing needs. Red Tail Golf Center, where we guarantee the lowest holiday prices. Visit us at golfredtail.com. First on The Fan, there's a couple bowl games. One just wrapped up, the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Navy tops Oklahoma 21-20 after a failed 2-point conversion by Oklahoma as time expired. Then getting underway right now, Georgia Tech, they're taking on Vanderbilt in the Birmingham Bowl. Georgia Tech is favored by 3. The total is set at 49.5. 3 games this NFL Saturday. You've got the Chargers taking on the Patriots. Chargers are favored by 4.5 there. Broncos traveling to Cincy to take on the Bengals. Cincy is favored by 3.5 in that one. And then the final game of Saturday, you've got the Cardinals traveling to LA to take on the Rams. The Rams are favored by 6.5 in that one. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The Fan is live on
The Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl came down to a 2-point conversion at the end, and Navy beats Oklahoma.
What a great game. See, this is why you can't take away the bowls. Bowl games are fun. Bowl games matter.
Yeah, they do. And, I'm trying to think, when do you think the last time that Navy and Oklahoma played, or Navy had a team that was good enough to beat Oklahoma?
Probably since before World War II. You know what I mean?
It was actually after World War II. I have it up right now.
Really?
This was only the second meeting between the two schools.
So Navy is 2-0 against Oklahoma.
They are now 2-0 all time against Oklahoma.
So they beat, I don't know, is this like during Nam? Like the last time Navy beat Oklahoma was during Nam?
No.
When?
No, it was before that. 1965.
So Korean War time. That was on the opposite sides of the wars.
The 1965 Oklahoma midshipmen beat Oklahoma in Norman 10-0.
What a barn burner.
John Cartwright, the quarterback of the team for Navy back then. And so, now all time, the midshipmen 2-0 against Oklahoma in football.
Do you think Oklahoma is going to start scheduling them? Like, we got to switch this. can't be 0-2 against Navy.
No, you can't do it. But I love that. And what I love about it is I've never really thought about the size of Navy players until we went to the Army-Navy game. They are not big, man. I think Navy has 2 300-pounders on their team because you have to get a waiver to be over 300 pounds to be in one of the academies. So, like, just think of that from a sheer size standpoint. Like, these guys, when I was walking on the field, I was sitting there thinking the NAIA school that I played for had bigger offensive linemen and defensive linemen than Navy does, right?
Oh, yeah.
Colin Ramos, who he had 12 tackles in the Lockheed Martin Bowl, and he was all over the field in the Army-Navy game, like everywhere in that game. He's number 44. Mm-hmm. He's an inside linebacker, and he's listed at 5'11", 209. And I stood next to him, shook his hand after the game, after the Army-Navy game. He's not 5'11".
That's small.
Maybe with his helmet on and in his cleats, he's 5'11", but he's probably 5'9", 5'10", 200 pounds. And that's the thing about the academies is that you're like, how in the world are these guys playing Division I football and really good? Like Navy 10-3 on the year, right? Army is 11-2 on the season. They're not just playing, but they're beating regularly these guys that are behemoths and monsters. I don't know what Oklahoma's starting offensive line, what they're listed at, but I guarantee you every single one of them is over 300 pounds, and they just win with discipline. They win with leverage. And on the final play of the game, Oklahoma scores, and they go for 2, and Navy gets home.
Yeah.
They blow it up, and there's a guy wide open in the end zone, but they couldn't even get through the read. Oklahoma now finishes the season 6-7 and loses to Navy in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Let's go.
Well,
Let's go.
Like, the best part about it, too, is you talk about the discipline. Haskins is known for his escapability over at Oklahoma. Like, that's why they benched Arnold for him early on, because Arnold couldn't move as well as this kid could. And 2 Navy guys get in, and it's proper technique. You're tracking that near hip. They don't let him get outside of the pocket. They close him in together, and then they get home and get the sack to get the stop. Like, if that was a normal college football program, as soon as you get through as a D lineman, most of those guys are going to be chomping at the bit, and they're just going to take off. They're going to have their ears pinned back and go. They're not going to think about the possibility of the quarterback juking them and then now being set up to get that 2-point conversion, get home free. So it also shows that it pays dividends. Like, yeah, they run a weird offense that if you don't prepare for it or have time to prepare for it or see it every year, that it can be difficult to stop. Well, Oklahoma had the time. Brent Venables is one of the best, if not best, defensive minds in all of college football. He had them schemed up. He had it all figured out, yet they still can't find a way to win that football game. It was awesome.
Nope. So Navy beats Oklahoma 21-20 in the Armed Forces Bowl. I can't believe that. That's crazy.
This is why bowl games matter, dude. They're important.
I now have the 2 deep up for Oklahoma in their offensive line.
I bet you they average 315.
They go left tackle 6'6", 309, left guard 6'5", 316, center 6'3", 310, right guard 6'4", 339, right tackle 6'6", 313.
I'll tell you right now, too, like in some positions, they put weight on dudes. In the O-line position, they take weight off dudes. I'll tell you right now, add 10 to 15 pounds on all of those weights because they're going to play it bigger.
I will give you the 3 down for Navy now. 6'3", 263, 6 foot, 278, 6'1", 273. That's their defensive line.
I bet you could take 10 off those, too.
Their linebackers go 217, 207, 209, 228.
Oh, my gosh. I played against bigger linebackers in D2. At Central Washington, I played against bigger guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. And that's the other thing, too, is that, like, in the era of the portal, guys aren't leaving.
Well,
Guys
one
aren't
day.
coming in because, like, when you go to a service academy, that's the other thing, too, is that these guys are going to be there for 4 years, right? So it's not just that they're undersized, but they're all sticking around for the entirety of their career. And that continuity of playing alongside somebody and playing in the same system for multiple years, that goes a long way, man. I love that. I love that for Navy. Way to go, Navy.
It's awesome.
And now Oklahoma has got to be, they're on tilt. And the SEC's on tilt, as Dio points out on the Vancouver Ford text line. Navy didn't beat Oklahoma. Navy beat the SEC. SEC record this bowl season, 2-2.
I love that. I also love that after all their whining and crying that Tennessee just got smacked. And I know that's not what this segment was, but I love seeing Paul Feinbaum have to carry the water for the SEC after an SEC team loses a really bad game.
Yeah, he does it. He does it better than anybody, though. He does it better than anybody. All right. Hey, from the SEC losing a bowl game to an former SEC player being too on brand, and he may be my new favorite player in the NFL. Danny Dusty on the Fan.
Seahawks football is on.
Danny and Dusty. It's a Dusty Nordner edition as I'm down in Eugene. This is the last show that I will be on the air for this year. So we'll dive into the college football playoff, the Oregon-Ohio State matchup, and obviously the week of the NFL that has happened. And what's on the line coming up starting tomorrow, where the Chargers will take on the New England Patriots. And they got them playoff hopes on the line for the LA Chargers. But a team that does not have any playoff aspirations right now are the Carolina Panthers. Although, dude, Bryce Young has been playing a lot better. And Dave Canales is – people need to start putting some respect on Dave Canales' name as a guy who is a quarterback whisperer. Think about what Canales has done. Geno Smith up in Seattle, Baker Mayfield in Tampa. And it's not like Bryce Young is going to be like a franchise quarterback or a guy who's going to win a Super Bowl. But the fact that he has gotten Bryce Young to look competent and get them and keep them into games, pretty impressive. They're 4-11. They're still not very good. But a man that needs to be discussed anytime that he talks is Xavier Legette, the South Carolina Gamecock, who's a rookie wide receiver. His year has been a roller coaster. But the man is a quote machine. He is so country it hurts. And I love everything about Xavier Legette. I really do. Like, the way he plays, the fact that he just does not give a rip, that he is a little bit country bumpkin in him. Actually, a lot of bit of country bumpkin in him. So country, in fact, he talked prior to the Christmas holiday of the fare at the Legette household. And he said he was going to be eating raccoon. Xavier Legette yesterday brought raccoon to the team locker room and shared it with his teammates, and the media didn't even believe him, so he even busted it out during his press availability. Take a listen.
I got some right now.
Look, so the people want to know how you're a picky eater when you eat coon.
I mean, I don't eat the bell peppers and all that extra stuff like that. So anything that's exotic, this stuff is too exotic for me.
The bell peppers?
Yeah,
The bell peppers are what's
onions.
exotic?
Yeah, that's exotic. The coon is regular. I mean, I've been eating that since I came out.
So what'd you have for Christmas?
I had some coon. I bought some with me today, too.
Where is it?
What?
Let me see it.
You know what?
I already gave you some.
Stop playing.
They for me.
That's what it looks like?
Really?
Can we take a picture of that?
Man, y'all is crazy, man.
It looks like. It looks weird.
Doesn't look like, that's not what I expected.
I thought it to be in clumps. Did you smell it, Kevin?
Have you thought about
You should not put your nose near that man's
Oh,
food.
yeah. I just brought it with me that morning. I had it in the refrigerator.
Wait.
Okay.
Okay, so much to unpack from that. First thing, he's like, no, I really do eat raccoon. Like, I've been eating my whole life, and I had to bring it in so my teammates could have it. What did you see the pictures of what it looked like?
I saw the video.
It kind of looks like shredded pork a little bit.
Yeah, which is not what I would have expected. I would have.
No.
I'm dumb. I would have expected ground beef.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right?
Yes. But then he says, I don't eat all the other stuff. The bell peppers are exotic. I'm with the reporter on that one. Of all of the things that you're going to sit there and say I wouldn't eat, bell peppers would be at the bottom of that list. Raccoon probably at the top. Probably at the top.
What does
But
it
he's
taste
like, nah, this is it. I don't know.
Like what can you compare it to? Because like, what are raccoons? I mean, they're trash pandas, but I wouldn't expect them to taste like a bear.
Let's see.
Like what?
All right,
What
I'm
would we
gonna-
compare it to? And don't say chicken. Everyone says chicken.
Okay. Well, I Googled it.
Okay.
The flavor profile of raccoon is mild, slightly gamey tasting, not overly strong. The texture can be tender but also be tough depending on the animal's age and cooking method. It's considered to be relatively greasy compared to other meats, so proper cooking techniques are important. You have to thoroughly cook raccoon meat to a safe internal temperature. Does not give the temperature.
I would think.
But it says that it tastes similar to dark meat chicken or turkey with a slightly richer, fattier flavor. And
We're not doing this, right?
No. Some say it can be quite tender when cooked properly. Something tells me that if he has been eating this his whole life, the Legette family is cooking it properly. Like, this is like, you just don't start with Xavier Legette, who's like 20 or 21, and that be like the first generation of the family cooking and eating raccoon. So I have a feeling he is this is really good.
I have a
Raccoon?
dumb question.
Yeah, go ahead.
do you need a tag to hunt this? Do you hunt the raccoon? Do you
Yeah.
leave
Yeah.
traps out for the raccoon?
Great
How does
question.
one get the raccoon? Do you go
Yeah.
to the store for the raccoon?
Dude, he's
Are
so
you on-
country, you may just find it on the side of the road and cook it up. I
Like,
don't know.
Right, like are you on the black web ordering raccoon meat? Like
no,
what's
no, 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 no.
happening here?
This is probably trapped. This is probably trapped. Best comparison is a mix between goose and venison.
Yuck.
Yeah, I don't know.
I want no part of this.
I mean, that doesn't sound nearly as bad as like what I would expect raccoon to taste like, right? I mean, it's a roadkill animal.
Exactly.
So I would goose and venison, that's actually really good from what I was expecting.
I just don't understand. Like, I'm not here to judge what other people eat. I had like 8 pieces of peanut butter pie over the last
Yeah.
2 days.
Yep.
So
Wait, hold on.
Glass house.
You just need to change that to an entire peanut butter pie.
No, because some was gluten free. It's not. Most of the pie's still there.
That's not.
Also,
how
you
it
don't know how
works,
big
Will.
my slices are.
That's not how it works. I have a very good idea of how big those slices were. And I am guessing that, yeah, 4 cuts of that pie is about what we were looking at. You ate an entire.
Look, I'm on a fast. Calories don't count during the holidays.
You know,
I don't want any.
I'll accept this. This is good. That's good enough reasoning. I'm on a fast now. I'm on a fast now.
I'm dieting now.
All right.
I'm fixing it now.
Xavier Legette, I need to see a cooking show with him in the off season. I think that people would watch for a variety of reasons. One, football fans will watch anything. See Thursday Night Football last night.
Yuck.
2, his voice, anybody will just sit and listen, and you might have to have the subtitles on because his drawl is so thick that you often can't understand what he says most of the time. 3, it is going to be wild cooking that they are going to be doing. You're telling me that we get a cooking show and it's basically Xavier Legette and his family going out and trapping animals or finding roadkill and cooking it up? I'm in. I'm in for raccoon and squirrel and whatever else that the Legette family has in their backyard. I'm here for it. I'm here for all of it. I would love to see it. And I think that they should make a cooking show out of it. You pair up Xavier Legette and Martha Stewart, I'm watching that cooking show. You can put Xavier Legette with anybody. I'm watching that cooking show. I'm in. 100%. 100% I'd be in. Tell me you wouldn't watch that.
I'd tune in. I'll tell you what. Right now, I've gone down a wormhole of the different like places that eat raccoon, and there's a lot of tribes up here that eat raccoon.
See? There we go.
So
Let's do it.
Maybe I
I'm in.
need to stop knocking it.
And raccoons are everywhere, man. The trash pandas, they're always around.
I think
They're everywhere.
Here's what I think I need.
Yeah.
I need to be told that I'm eating raccoon, but not told what is raccoon. I think that's how I'd be able to eat it.
So you want to go blind taste test where there's like 3 different types of meat and you have to
Yeah.
guess which one is the raccoon?
Yeah, I think that's how I'm going to have to get down on this. Because I think
Okay.
if I go into it knowing it's raccoon, I'm going to immediately be like, Xavier Legette is an animal and this is gross. Like, I don't want any part of anyone eating this. But if I don't know, then I might like become Team Xavier Legette.
I'm so in on all of this. All right, hour number 1 is in our rearview mirror. Coming up in hour number 2, we will discuss the Seahawks' victory over the Chicago Bears. That is leaving Seahawk fans a little bit more concerned than they are happy with the way that win went down. But where we start, the Rose Bowl rematch, Oregon, Ohio State. The Ducks can do something that has been done in 130 years. Danny and Dusty on the Fan.
an Odyssey sports station. Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, 3 games in the NFL this Saturday. First, the Chargers are traveling east to New England. They're taking on the Patriots. Chargers are favored by 4.5. The total for that one is set at 42.5. Kickoff at 10 on Saturday. Then the Broncos travel to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Bengals are trying to keep their very slim playoff hopes alive. Cincy favored by 3.5. Total at 49.5. Kickoff at 1:30. The last game features an in-division matchup between the Cardinals and the Rams. Arizona trying to play spoiler. LA is favored at home by 6.5. Total is set at 47.5. Kickoff at 5 p.m. One bowl game already wrapped up today. The Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl just finished up. Navy tops Oklahoma 21-20 after a failed 2-point conversion by Oklahoma in the final seconds. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Your favorite fan shows.
Number 2, Danny and Dusty here on this Friday. I'm down in Eugene. Will Ortner back up in the studios holding down the ship. Thanks for being a part of our day, letting us be a part of yours, whether it's on 1080 AM, 99.5 HD2, the Odyssey app, twitch.tv/1080 AM The Fan, or youtube.com/1080 AM The Fan. Party on, you party animals on YouTube. This is my last show of the year. Because I'm heading down to Pasadena for the Rose Bowl. Oregon, Ohio State coming up on New Year's Day in the college football playoff quarterfinals, a rematch of an October 12th game here in Eugene where the Ducks held off Ohio State 32-31. An all-timer and an incredible game. And as I was going through and just kind of looking up the numbers on, they always say it's hard to beat a great team twice. And it is. I mean, it is incredibly difficult to beat a great team 2 times in one season. Something from the Dayton Daily News popped up. And this newspaper was founded in 1898 in Ohio. It was founded after the last time Ohio State lost 2 games in the same season to the same team. The last time the Ohio State Buckeyes lost to the same team twice in a season was in 1894 to Wittenberg College.
Yeah, they're a power, aren't they?
That's a very long time. But when you think about it, it's really hard to face the same team twice, especially in the Big Ten, because when they had their 2 divisions, remember when they called them the Leaders and the Legends division?
Who could forget?
It was so widely mocked and ridiculed that they said, we're going to change that to East and West. It was a top-heavy East and West, right, to where you didn't have a lot of rematches because Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State were all on the same side, right? So finding those rematches really hard to do, and Ohio State's been really damn good at football. That's the other part of this, is that you don't have very often where Ohio State loses 2 times to the same team in a year. But going back to 1894, that's 130 years ago. That is so long ago. It's so long ago, in fact, the Dayton Daily News says touchdowns were worth 4 points, field goals worth 5, and extra points were worth 2 points.
Gotta love inflation.
Back then, well, deflation on the field goals. Field goals went from 5 to 3 points. They said, we want less kickers. Extra points, 2 points. They're like, no, we don't want the kickers to mean this much. We're going to give touchdowns 6 points. That just puts it into perspective how long it's been since Ohio State has lost twice to the same team in a season. But as we sit there and we look at recently in college football, right, just this year, we have Georgia and Texas. playing 2 times. And Georgia came out on the right side of that both times. Last year, Oregon and Washington, they played 2 times in the same season. I think in both of these instances, we can say all 4 teams, great teams. And the same team won in both of those games. Historically speaking, you do see more splits in the same matchup twice in a season. But recently, you've seen actually the same team win in 2 of the most high-profile and marquee matchups that we've seen. But as it pertains to Oregon and Ohio State, that game that we had here on October 12th was an all-timer. I mean, it was one of the best games in the history of Autzen Stadium. It was a back-and-forth affair. You had lead change after lead change. You had 2 heavyweights swinging and throwing their best shot. And I think as you look at this game, the thing that's going to intrigue me the most is, and we've talked about this ad nauseum with Ohio State, is their offensive line. Because in that game against Oregon, they lose their starting left tackle, and they run the ball for under 2 yards per carry after that. You fast forward, they also lose their starting center for the season in practice with a ruptured Achilles. And those are 2 massive injuries. 2 most important positions on your offensive line. You lost both of those guys. And they are not going to be in the Rose Bowl, and they're not going to be suiting up again. On the flip side of that, you look at Oregon and their defensive line. I think we have seen the best football from the defensive line since that Ohio State game, right? Where you look at Jordan Birch did not play in that game. And we saw what it has meant to Mateo Uyunglele and kind of his rise as one of the preeminent pass rushers in the Big Ten since that game. Derek Harmon and Jamari Caldwell, I think we forget how early in the season that was of them still getting used to, and I thought what we've seen out of Derek Harmon is one of the most dominant interior defensive linemen in college football. And that matchup with Ohio State's offensive line, which looked absolutely incredible against Tennessee, and Oregon in their defensive line, that is going to be the telling matchup in this game.
Yeah, when I look at this one, the reason why I feel pretty confident about Oregon coming out on top in this game is because of that D-line matchup. Like, Oregon was the weaker opponent in the D-line, O-line matchup in the last game. Ohio State full strength, Oregon obviously not. Mateo Uyunglele then goes out and dominates your left tackle. And I guess I shouldn't say dominates, but he dominates in key spots. When Oregon needed a key 3rd down stop, who's the one that won their 1-on-1 matchup? It was Uyunglele, and he gets that big stop on Judkins, and that forces an Ohio State punt early in that second half. Later on, when you needed a sack, who's the one guy who got to Will Howard? Mateo Uyunglele, and he did it against that left tackle. Now you're getting the 3rd-string left tackle. You're going to have Harmon, who, by the way, had maybe the most impressive play you've ever seen out of a D lineman, save for Jadeveon Clowney when he was taking on Michigan in the Outback Bowl, where he literally just comes in. He was going to get double-teamed on that play. Like, if you go back, you watch the All-22, Derek Harmon is supposed to be double-teamed on that play. He beats both guys, gets into the backfield, and still has the wherewithal to strip the ball while he's laying an absolute licking on that running back. And then the other thing about it, because now you're down your top center. You're down to your 3rd-string left tackle. Ohio State also got a little banged up against Tennessee. The right guard had to miss some time, right?
Right tackle, ankle sprain.
Right. So there's some questions about, do I think those guys are going to play? 100%. They're offensive linemen. You don't really need an ankle to play offensive line. You'll be okay. You tape that thing up and you go figure it out. That's just how O-linemen operate. But that doesn't mean that you're at 100% healthy and that you're going to get tested early in this game, I think. I think that if Oregon is able to get home with just their 4 D linemen, which I think they will be able to do, you're not going to have to see those exotic blitzes that Oregon has to run at times when they aren't getting home. They can sit back into coverage, which you need to do against this wide receiver group that Ohio State has. So I think the game is going to be won between the offensive line of Ohio State and the D line of Oregon. And to me, I like that matchup to go Oregon's way.
Yeah, there's a gamble, though, that you are playing if you think you can get home with 4, because we saw that with Tennessee, right?
Right.
Tennessee said, we are going to drop coverage. We're not going to double team Emeka Egbuka or Jeremiah Smith. Or Tate. We are going to drop 7 into coverage and try to get home with our front 4. And all that led to was the run game for Ohio State. And I think this is an advantage for Oregon. You saw what Ohio State's best shot was offensively, what they were most comfortable with, what they feel they need to do to win, because there is your back is against the wall, especially after the way that Michigan game went, right? And Tennessee's unwillingness for a majority of that game, or until the game got out of hand, to bring more than 4 is what ended up dooming them. And I think that what you saw from Michigan, that's the blueprint, right? It's bracket Jeremiah Smith, try to take him away with double coverage, bring more than 4. And here's where Oregon had a lot of success, and where you have that rotation that you're talking about with the offensive line. It's going to be with, all right, we're going to bring 5, but you don't know where they're coming from. Right?
Yeah, they do a good job in that mint defense. Like, as an O-lineman, my worst fear is not having a guy over me. Like, I hate that. I want a guy over me. Even if it's Jordan Birch, I want him in a 5 technique because I know he's coming. And I know he's going to come into one of these gaps more than likely. What Oregon likes to do when they do bring pressure is they walk their 2 middle linebackers up into the A gaps, and they walk their 2 outside backers, and they'll put them on the outside, or some variation of that. They'll bring a lot of their linebackers to the line of scrimmage. And as an offensive lineman, I have to get depth as quick as possible, and then I have to go through my MDM, so my most dangerous man. Who am I supposed to take? If I'm left gap responsible, who's going to end up in this left gap? If I'm right gap or man responsible, who's the most dangerous man, and who's the man that I'm leaving to the running back? And that can be extremely difficult. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I don't think that Oregon will necessarily have to bring a lot of blitz. You can't go a whole game without blitzing. That's just not how this defense works. The one thing that I will say, though, is I think Tennessee and I think Ohio State kind of showcase this. I think Tennessee thought more highly of their secondary than they should have. Tennessee's secondary didn't get tested at all. Like, if you think about it, the best quarterback that they played was Jalen Milroe throughout the year. You could maybe throw in Carson Beck in there as well. But here's the thing. Jalen Milroe has the wide receivers, but he's banged up. He doesn't look good in that game. He missed a lot of easy throws to a lot of open receivers. When you go against Georgia and Beck made a lot of the throws, but Georgia doesn't have many wide receivers where you're like, oh, geez, that guy scares me. He scares me going deep. He scares me, across the middle. And so what I think when you look at this Oregon secondary, they've been tested. In fact, they've been tested by this offense. And you can make the argument they have the best 2 wide receivers in the country on the same team, right? They have the best tandem, I should say. And so Oregon's going to have to make their adjustments on how they cover these wide receivers, because Kelly's going to have his adjustments to how Oregon covered them the first time. But I think that this secondary can have confidence in the fact that you were able to not stop, because you're not going to stop Egbuka, you're not going to stop Smith, but you can make it more difficult for them to get theirs. And I think Oregon did a great job of that in the secondary the first time they played.
I think that a couple of things that we saw with Penn State especially, and the teams that have had success against Oregon because of that you mentioned walking up the linebackers, it takes a little bit of time, right? They do a lot of disguising of where that pressure is going to come from. Tempo is where offenses have had success against Oregon, because they like to get set, they like to get a lay of the land, and we saw Penn State, they found rhythm when they were running that up-tempo offense. It wore Tyler Warren into the ground, but that's not the heart and soul of this Ohio State team. So that's going to be an interesting one for me. And we know Chip Kelly, he's got the tempo variance in his offense where he will pull that string back, and he has 4 different tempos that he'll run that offense at, where he'll go pedal to the metal and then back off of it, and he tries to catch you in mismatches and try to catch you off balance there. I think that you make a good point about Tennessee secondary, because that was one of their concerns heading into the year. was how good their secondary was, and they held up throughout the course of the year. But I also will say that Oregon has been tested dude for dude on the outside, similarly to Tennessee with, as you mentioned, Alabama's wide receiver core, pretty dang good. Oregon, the best quarterback Oregon has seen this year is probably Will Howard, right?
Him or Altmaier, maybe? Like, those are your probably best. Well, no, Aller. Drew Aller
kind of makes the point, though,
Drew
right?
Aller's probably. I would say Aller's the best.
I'd say Will Howard is right. I would give Howard a nod over Aller, but it's close. And to the point being that, Oregon has been tested by this Ohio State team the first time around. They're not gonna attack Oregon the same way either.
No.
And that is one thing that Oregon had the advantage of being at home, watching that first round, and saying, all right, this is their best shot. This is what they're most comfortable with. I expect from Ohio State a lot of tempo. They're going to try to lean on the run game and catch Oregon because that's where Chip is most comfortable with. And then what did that lead to? We saw Jeremiah Smith or Emeka Egbuka or Tate running free down the middle of the field. And I said this after the first round matchup. It looked like Chip's offense, where you're going, how is that guy wide open? It's because it's the setup to that payoff being that deep shot down the field. That all hinges, though, in what you were talking about with being able to get pressure on Will Howard, because if he has time, he will pick you apart, and he will beat you. That's going to be the interesting part about this game defensively. On the offensive side, for Oregon, I think we've seen some growth, but there is obviously going to be some questions because will Ohio State do what they did the first time around? We'll get to that next. Danny and Dusty on the Fan.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to
Prime Time.
Ohio State, the Rose Bowl coming up. Less than a week away. New Year's Day down in Pasadena, the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. And we talked about Oregon's defense in the matchup against the Buckeyes offense. But there were a few things that over the course of the first game on October 12th and the way that matchup played out, Oregon offensively, I don't know. And this is going to be the bajillion-dollar question, right? Is we saw Evan Stewart go off in that game. We saw Tez be the threat and kind of menace in the way that they motioned him and moved him around. That was just fascinating to watch Dylan Gabriel say, all right, unlock cheat code, and it's number 7, Evan Stewart.
Right.
I'm not sure if we will see Ohio State defend Oregon anywhere close to the way they tried to the first time, because there were a couple things at play. Oregon's offensive line played a damn near flawless game protection-wise. I mean, you did not hear JT Tuimoloau's name or Jack Sawyer's name, and that was a dude on dude. They were money. And that, look, to be fair, Ohio State, when they have matched up against very good offensive lines, they have been neutralized up front. I mean, those guys have been. But for Oregon, can you play the flawless game that you played the first time around? And there's going to be points to be had. The other thing is, what does it look like in the back end as far as nobody had tested Denzel Burke all season long. And Will Stein, Dylan Gabriel said, all right, we're going to go ahead and try it. And they went deep on him 2 times, and they had success twice. And that was the first time that we'd seen him be tested in that way all season long. And so that's going to be the fascinating part for me, is that I don't think if you watch in the way that Ohio State defended Tennessee, they loaded up against the run. And we didn't get a good read on what the best shot of Tennessee or Ohio State's defense is in that game, because of the injuries that when Sampson goes down, Dante Thornton goes down, Nico playing in a 14-0 hole off basically the onset of the game, right? You know that what his strength is having a run game to supplement him being able to take shots, because he's a freshman quarterback back there. And it allowed Jim Knowles and that Ohio State defense to play just loose and with their hair on fire. And that is going to be the fascinating part for Ohio State's defense and how they attack Oregon's offenses. We saw what the Ohio State offense best shot was, and that was Chip Kelly getting back in his bag and looking like the Chip that was calling plays at Oregon, using tempo and running the ball, false pulls to create movement from linebackers, and replacing with the +1 with your quarterback even running the ball in Will Howard. I mean, you saw 2 backs on the field at the same time in motion, kind of to leverage a defense with a false puller and just alleyways to run through that were a mile wide, right? The defense for Ohio State, I don't think we saw what their best shot was, because Tennessee was forced to play uncomfortably. And they looked very uncomfortable throughout the course of that game in Columbus.
I almost feel like the first time that they played, Knowles and that defense kind of expected the D-line to whoop up on Oregon. Like, remember, the narrative around that Oregon O-line around that time is they can't handle it in big games. This isn't that far removed from the stinker that they laid against Idaho and one of the more worst first halves that you can watch as an offensive lineman against Boise State. Now, it felt like Oregon had righted the ship for us, right? Because we're watching every game. We're watching the All-22, so we have an understanding of like, okay, Oregon made a move here. They made a change. They have a new center. He's now got everyone on the same page. They're fixing the mistakes that they have made, and it clearly showed, I felt like, against Michigan State and against UCLA and Oregon State in the run game and in the passing game. But nationally, it still felt like there was a narrative around Oregon. They're not as good as everyone kind of expected them to be, and it's because of this offensive line. Well, you're not going to trick anyone now with how good your O-line is. You were a Joe Moore Award finalist for offensive line. You were one of 3, right? And you've done it for the last 3 years. So what I believe,
and had another Heisman quarterback
100%.
finalist. Like that. Look,
your offensive
line
Your
is a big
offense
reason
you.
why your quarterback gets to New York.
Yes, and the continued success that they've had through multiple different offensive line coaches, right?
Yeah.
I think Knowles and that Ohio State defense, they dial up a lot more pressure. And I think you're going to see a lot more exotic fire zones, a lot of blitzing, almost like he might go into Oregon film, right? Or go into Dan Lanning's time when he was at Georgia. Because what Lanning likes to do, and Lanning has done a good job of this, and La'Poy has done this as well, obviously, is as an offensive lineman, I want to see who's coming to go against me. I want to see a down D lineman. I would rather see Micah Parsons lined up next to me than two linebackers lined up over me, because there's a possibility that I could pick the wrong one, right?
Yep.
Where the linebackers are just reading the offensive lineman. If I step to the left, that guy's going to drop in coverage. The guy on the right's coming. If I step to the right, it's the opposite of what's happening. So I would expect Ohio State to start dialing up more pressure and more exotic looks, because they weren't able to get home last time.
Yep.
And that's where you see a lot of the success of these defensive linemen trying to find ways to create one-on-one matchups for Jack Sawyer, for JT, and I'm not even going to attempt his last name, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
Thank you. When those guys are getting one-on-one matchups, they've had success and they've found a way to hit home. Now, I think the one calling card that Oregon can lean on is how good your tackles have played. Like, Connerly went up against the best defensive lineman in all of college football in Abdul Carter and shut him down, to the point where Penn State moved him and they were using him more as like a stand-up linebacker, where he was almost kind of the read player. He was the spy to Dylan Gabriel, and he would just wait until Gabriel moved, whether he was going to move to the right or to the left, and then Abdul Carter would come blitzing, because he got dominated by your tackles. So you're going to have to lean on your tackles to have another big game, especially in the passing game, to allow Dylan Gabriel the time to find his open wide receivers.
I will be very interested to see the use of Tez, Noah Whittington, and Jordan James in create, because if you're going to start playing that spy, right, the one way that you do it is you leverage it with motion, and Will Stein does a really good job at that.
Right.
And that is something that I think is everybody is kind of reacting, and I think it's a proper reaction, if we're being quite frank here. It's proper reaction for Ohio State to get the buzz that they are getting right now, because of the warts that they showed against Michigan, and then the way their O-line played. I do think that they are getting a rightful pop, because it was impressive, and they were doing things that we didn't think that they were capable of doing, especially against a really good front seven in Tennessee. So I think there's a pop there for Ohio State's offense, and it's justified, and rightfully so. I also think that Oregon, and I think maybe people are forgetting the explosiveness of this offense when Tez is healthy, and when Tez is the feature of the way that they use him in motion. I call it his gravity, the gravity of Tez Johnson, and what he forces every level of the defense to do when he gets put in motion. And the same can be said with Noah Whittington and Jordan James as well, because we've seen those guys lined up outside, in the slot, in the backfield, shifting to either one of those three positions, and Oregon still runs with rhythm in everything that they're doing on the offensive side of the ball. So it's not just the gravity of Tez anymore. It's the gravity of the backs as well, because of how effective they have been, not just running the ball, but as receivers as well. This is not to say that Oregon is going to run away with this game, or it's going to be, all Ducks and it's 100%. This could be a damn good football game again, because you have two juggernauts that are playing in the quarterfinals. For everybody that was complaining about the matchups that were had in the first round of the playoffs, this is going to be a matchup that everybody's saying the 12-team playoff, this is what you wanted to see. And is the path a hell of a lot tougher for the number one overall seed? Yeah, it is. Think they're going to start tweaking that as the playoff continues. But this is exactly the matchups that we wanted to see in the college football playoff, and it comes in the round of 8.
I don't think it's hyperbole to predict that the winner of this game will win the whole thing. Like, I don't think that's wrong, barring a big significant injury.
Yeah.
Obviously, it feels like Penn State has the easiest path, at least to the semifinals. Now, stranger things have happened, right? Just ask James Franklin or any Penn State fan in the James Franklin era. But if I'm Oregon and you're going to face Ohio State, this might be the best time to do it in the fact of you are at 100% health. There's no fluke injury or someone gets beat up or banged up. And Ohio State, they already played a game, so obviously they're not as well rested as you. You could also have the rest versus rust kind of debate there. But the thing about it with Ohio State is, like we talked about with the offensive line, they already have some guys that are dinged up, that are scraped up. And yeah, the path might not be on paper the easiest path that you could have as a 1 seed, and you should have the easiest path. But you still have to play the football games. And so if I'm Oregon, I'd rather play Ohio State when I'm as healthy as I possibly could be than possibly play them later on down the road.
Yep.
And if you are Oregon and you're an Oregon fan, I would probably invest in Pepto-Bismol or other avenues to help calm yourself down, because it's going to be a very back and forth Rose Bowl. This is going to be the game of the season, I believe.
That's what it's all about, my man. All right, let's get to our worst day on the web, which sometimes it can be a really good day. This was a number that it floored me when I saw, and I wonder if it's as surprising to everybody else. And it comes out of the holiday season. Danny and Dusty on the Fan.
This is a Football Friday edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on the Fan, one bowl game in action. Currently, Georgia Tech, they're taking on Vanderbilt in the Birmingham Bowl. Right now, that game is tied at 7. Vanderbilt is currently driving, 4:45 left to go in the first half. One game already over. That's the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Navy was able to top Oklahoma 21-20 after a failed 2-point conversion by Oklahoma in the final seconds. A couple other bowl games going on today. At 4, the AutoZone Liberty Bowl kickoff as Texas takes on Arkansas. Texas Tech is favored by 2.5. The total for that one set at 51.5. Coverage for that game starts at 3:30, and you can hear it over on 910 ESPN Portland. At 5, the Cougs are taking on the 21st ranked Syracuse Orange in the DirecTV Holiday Bowl. With all the turnover for the WSU Cougars, the Orange are favored by 18. Total set at 59.5. The action wraps up at 7:30 with USC taking on Texas A&M in the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl. Texas A&M is favored by 3. Total is set at 53.5. That game can also be found on 910 ESPN Portland. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The Hot Corner, now in its new time, Tuesday.
All right, got a double dip for worst day on the webs today. The first one, this popped up on my feed, and I asked my wife this question, and I want to ask you. How much do you think Mariah Carey makes every year on All I Want for Christmas Is You?
I bet you she makes it to the point where she would never have to work again. So, I don't know, upwards of 10 to 15 million?
Every year for like a month run.
Dude,
no,
that's all
it's
you
not,
hear.
It's not that big. This is the 30th anniversary of that song this year. She has made over $60 million since it debuted in 1994. She makes off of royalties alone annually $2.6 million
2.6
off of that song.
Wow, I actually would have thought it was higher.
You thought it would be more? I think 2.6 for 1 month of airplay every year. I think that's good. That's amazing.
Here's the thing. I'm not poo-pooing it. I'm not out here like, well, she could have done better. But think about it. That's all you hear.
Yeah.
All month long.
It's a
and a
great
bunch
song,
of
though.
heathens start playing it like in the middle of November anyways.
Do you see her on the old Netflix game, the pregame?
Yeah, she did all right.
Dude, Mariah Carey?
She was fine.
Yeah, yes, I know. She is fine. She's 55 years old.
I know, she did fine.
She looked amazing.
Oh, I was talking about her singing.
Well, her singing too. Mariah Carey's got pipes, but I am sitting there going, 55, my goodness.
I'm over here thinking we're talking about her singing, and you're talking about
that
how she
too.
looked.
It was incredible.
No, she was great. She looked great. I was impressed with Beyonce though.
Yeah, Beyonce. Look, I think it was a shot though at Houston. Not only everybody was like, "Oh, it reminded me of the Cowboys," and I was like, "Yeah, it did." I think that was everybody's first. What?
The album is called Cowboy Carter.
Right. But the big star that they were coming out of, it's like, you're in Houston. Maybe not have the star logo everywhere. Everybody was dressed like a Cowboys cheerleader, but whatever. I was fine with it. Beyonce was great, but here's the bridge too far.
Okay.
Post Malone, noted Cowboys fan. You brought after it was everything was like everybody's like complaining about a star. It's like you're in Texas. It's the Lone Star State. Okay, they're dressed in white like Cowboys cheerleaders. Yeah, whatever. What color do you want them to wear? When they brought out Post Malone, I was like, okay, now I understand all the Cowboys hate here.
But he's in the song.
The great thing that I saw. Do you see that denim truck?
Yeah.
They had the old jort bed truck out there. It's all denimed up. That was badass.
Well, that's Post Malone. If you want to kick out Post Malone, you don't get the denim truck. That
you
was
don't
his
get
whole thing.
you don't get the old jort bed. Yeah,
Dude,
man.
I want a denim truck. That'd be sick.
You're dang right. You're dang right.
I needed more Shabuzi though. I'll tell you that right now.
We did?
Yeah, Shabuzi's good.
Does
Are you
he
a
have...
Shabuzi hater?
No, I just don't know any other song that Shabuzi has
Yes,
ever made.
You know Bar Song.
Well, okay. Well, let me finish. I don't know another Shabuzi song outside of Bar Song.
I have a couple different.
Don't know if I've ever heard anything else from Shabuzi.
Oh, you should check out his catalog. You've got a long drive coming up. You
Which
can listen to it on the way back.
And every time I hear, I just think of Tipsy, the song Tipsy.
Oh yeah.
Because he just made Tipsy a country song, which
Yeah.
I'm for. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Shout out to, was it Jaquan? Isn't he? Didn't he?
I think it's Jaquan.
Teen drinking is very bad. I got a fake ID though.
Dude, that's a classic high school song right there.
Yeah, and then start singing about a club.
Yes, right. Yeah,
There you go.
None of us were getting into.
Got a fake ID though.
Just got that song.
Here's my other worst day on the web. Why are people mad at Eric Dickerson? Do you see what Eric Dickerson said today?
Yeah, he said that he doesn't want him to break his record.
Eric Dickerson was asked about Saquon Barkley being 268 yards away from breaking his record by the Los Angeles Times. And he said, I don't think he'll break it, but if he breaks it, do I want him to break it? Absolutely not. I don't pull no punches on that, but I'm not whining about it. He had 17 games to do it. Hey, football is football. Ooh, yes.
Sounds like you're whining.
That's the way I look at it. If he's fortunate to get over 2,000 yards and get the record, it's great. It's a great record to have. We brought this up, that Eric Dickerson, his record of 2,105 yards in 16 games, it would be done on more carries than Saquon Barkley. If Saquon's pace continues. If Saquon continued on his pace, he would do it on fewer carries. More games, but less carries. How do we feel about that?
I think it's more impressive Saquon doing it now because the game is completely different. You don't run the football the way that you used to back when Dickerson was playing. You're lucky now if you're a feature back, let alone a back that gets, 30 carries a game. Not that that's what Saquon's getting. So to me, when the game has changed in this way, it's more impressive. It's more impressive that he's doing it in less carries. I don't fault Dickerson for saying this. Like, it's the same thing that we talked about in the very first segment. You don't let your son win easy.
Nope.
You make sure he knows the deal. You don't let your cousins win when there's a significant age gap. At least I don't. I make him earn it, right? Dickerson wants him to have to earn it. And I get why he wants to hold on to that record. That's a cool thing to have. Hey.
And he's very proud of it.
And he should be. 100.
Yep.
Jinx, you owe me a Coke. It's one of those things that you should be proud of. It's an incredible accomplishment, an accomplishment that I would have thought would never be touched with the way that the NFL is going and how they run the football. But if Saquon Barkley beats him, like, who cares? Like, he did it in more games. So what? He still beat him. It's not his fault that he gets more games.
And Eric Dickerson did it in 16, and a lot of guys, Jim Brown, may have had records in 14 games that he would have had. But right now, Saquon Barkley is projected to have 356 carries for 2,083 yards. So if you want to go how many carries, that would probably be, for him to get the record on his averages, he'd probably need 370 carries to break Eric Dickerson's record. Mm-hmm. Eric Dickerson did it on 379 carries. So he would be 9 carries fewer for Barkley to break the record.
Well, and even if he ends up, let's say that Philly, because I don't put this past Sirianni, he's already tried to get Saquon the single game Philly record for rushing yards. What if Sirianni just says, I don't care, we're going to run the ball 60 times and make sure that Barkley gets this record? And let's say that that's what Saquon wants to do. It doesn't diminish the record in my eyes. Like,
nope.
If Dickerson wants to complain about it, well, O.J. Simpson did it in 14 games, right? Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. O.J. Simpson's the only running back to ever get 2,000 yards in 14 games. Everyone else needed more than 14 games. And I understand, like, I just went on a rant about how the game has changed. But if we're going to gatekeep it to the point of, like, well, we only count it if it's the least amount of games from the first person that said it, then no one would have ever passed O.J. Simpson's record. And we'd still be talking about O.J. Simpson being the all-time single-season rushing leader, but we're not. So who cares if he does it in more games? Who cares if he does it in more carries?
Do you know what I want to see? Mm-hmm. I want to see Saquon Barkley rush for 500 yards in Week 18.
Be awesome.
Because they play the Giants in Week 18. The last game of the season will be against his former team, and he didn't want to run for the record early in the year. Saquon Barkley, run for the record against the New York Giants. I would love that and watch everybody get fired because Mr. Mara, everybody just bring up that same clip from Hard Knocks that we've seen a million times now. If Saquon Barkley goes to the Eagles, sets the NFL rushing record, and breaks every NFL rushing record in a single game against them to finish out the year, I'm going to be here for all of it. All of it! With that said, the Vancouver Ford text line making a good point. He could probably break that record this weekend because it looks like it's going to be the Kenny Pickett show. And it's going to be feed Saquon, feed Saquon, feed Saquon. against the Dallas Cowboys. All right, 503-864-6326. That's the Vancouver Ford text line. This is Danny and Dusty on The Fan.
Check out the Fan Merch Locker.
Talked briefly about Oklahoma losing to Navy in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Question.
Answer.
How do people feel about Alabama getting snubbed now that the team that beat them by 21 just lost to Navy? Should they still have been in?
Well, no, they shouldn't have been in, but
They should have been in the first place.
People are still going to fight because they have water that they have to carry, whether it's for their network or for the conference that helped them gain their popularity or where they're at. Sometimes it's for whoever they're working for. Sometimes they're just a crazy person that's always going to side with an SEC team.
Yeah. Speaking of Alabama, you see Nick Saban has had a retort to Shane Gillis.
You mean Alabama Jones?
Yeah, dude, what a great bit. Nobody comes at Nick Saban like that. And he has responded. He went on the McAfee show.
Yeah.
And his response to Pat McAfee of Shane Gillis calling him in Alabama Jones and saying that he cheated, which I just love that somebody said it to one of these coaches' faces, right? They all knew what old operating procedure was for college football. Like before NIL, there was the Bagman. There's literally books written about the bag. It's called The Bagman. Great read. And there's like a whole subculture of bagmen that used to go around the SEC and around college football at large. But Gillis, like being open about it, like, oh yeah, nobody got paid in the SEC. You could see Saban was seething. And I love Saban's response to McAfee. I understand that Shane Gillis is a comedian and he was trying to be funny. My daughter loves him, so at least somebody in our family likes the guy. That's a great way to come back on that one. I mean, he's probably been thinking about that for a few days, but I'm glad Nick Saban is coming back like that. And he's pissed about it.
Oh, yeah. He was upset in the moment. I think if he could have, he would have fought Shane Gillis right then and there.
If he knew there was no live mics around, to be a fly on the wall when they went to break, because I bet you could hear a pin drop on that set when Gillis was like, all right, guys, well, see you guys later.
Oh, big gulps, huh?
What did ESPN expect, though? You bring Shane Gillis on to College Game Day, you're going to get fireworks. You're going to get fireworks.
I just love that he had the guts to say it. But the other thing that's funny about it, you think Notre Dame wasn't paying players, Shane? Come on now. Why can't everyone just be honest? Why can't we just be honest?
Well,
Nick
no, that's
Saban,
the thing.
Own what you did. They're not going to take your championships away.
Everybody, this is college football, Will, is that
be honest.
Everybody else's favorite school was doing it the wrong way. Your school wasn't, though.
I guarantee Central wasn't.
Southern wasn't either, man.
There's no bagmen in D2 and NAIA.
Yeah, it's purity.
We were clean.
Love of the game. Love of the game right there. No bagmen. If somebody was getting a bag when I was in college, it wasn't a very big bag. It was. I don't even know if you could call it a bag. It would have been like a Ziploc.
McDonald's.
We had to pay for the weight room one year to use the weight room one year. It was anti-bag. It was anti-bag.
You know who the bag? You were the bag man for
yeah,
the presidents
so.
and coaches.
I guess so. Yeah, that raised some red flags.
Like, hold on, wait a minute. I played with guys who got all jacked up when we only had to pay half price for a backpack.
That's what I'm talking about.
They were like, dude, normally this is full price. This rocks.
Yeah, closest thing to a benefit that I got in the school was I found out that the Jack in the Box, if your order wasn't done in 2 minutes, then you got your food for free.
That wasn't football-wise, though.
No, that was just for everybody at the time could do that. And so, I mean, the clock was running right when you made that order. That was the closest thing to an extra benefit that we got.
That's awesome.
I got a ride home from the bar owner. Is that an extra benefit? He was like, there's no way you're driving.
I rode in a car, not driven by a booster.
And I didn't even get to ride inside the car. I got in the back of his truck.
Oh, you were in the bed? I got offered a drink from a booster. That happened one time.
Oh, hey, see, now we're talking the impermissible benefits here. This is what I'm talking about.
I got a very quick, absolutely you will not have that from a coach.
Well, it's the thought that counts, right?
Hey, maybe he learned that at Southern. That coach bounced around a couple places.
Oh, man. All right. 2 hours in the books. Coming up in hour number 3, Jim Harbaugh's at it again. We have to, at some point, we're putting it off as long as we can, discuss Thursday Night Football last night. We do have a firing in the NBA from the coaching ranks, though. Danny and Dusty, an Ortner and Dusty edition on The Fan.
I'm Michael Jenkins, helping you beat the books with BetQL. Bowl season continues for the
KFXX KWJJ HD2 Portland, an Odyssey Sports Station. Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Sports Center is brought to you by Red Tail Golf Center's holiday sale. It's going on now with up to 50% off all of your holiday golfing needs. Red Tail Golf Center, where we guarantee the lowest holiday prices. Visit us at golfredtail.com. First on the Fan, one bowl game in action currently. It's the Birmingham Bowl. Vanderbilt, they're up 14-7 on Georgia Tech. There's about 14 seconds left to go in that one. One game already wrapped up. The Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Navy topped Oklahoma 21-20 after a failed two-point conversion by Oklahoma in the final seconds. Later on, the Cougars of Washington State take on the 21st-ranked Syracuse Orange in the DirecTV Holiday Bowl. With all the turnover in Pullman, right now the Orange are favored by 18. Total for that one is set at 59.5. Couple of NFL games this Saturday headlined by the final one. That one's going to be an in-division matchup between the Cardinals and the Rams. Arizona's trying to play spoiler for the Rams' playoff hopes. LA, they're favored at home by 6.5. Total is set at 47.5. Kickoff for that one at 5 p.m. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The Fan Merch Locker has a new with Danny and Dusty on 1080. Take the fight to them. The Fan.
Hour number 3, Danny and Dusty on this Friday afternoon. Hope everybody's having a great day. Back to a little bit of normalcy with the holiday in our rearview mirror. This is the last show for me this year, as I'm going to be heading down to Pasadena for the Rose Bowl, Oregon and Ohio State. If you missed our conversation about the Rose Bowl matchup, you can check it out in the audio vault on the Odyssey app or 1080thefan.com. Will be working feverishly to get the podcast out as soon as possible when the show's over.
Because the sooner it's out, the sooner I go home.
Yeah. We have a firing in the NBA. The Sacramento Kings have fired Mike Brown today. This following a 14-point fourth quarter lead that they blew against the Detroit Pistons of all teams, and that dropped the Kings to 12th in the Western Conference. Yikes, dog. Brown signed a 3-year deal extension back in June and only made it 31 games into the season. That is absolutely brutal, man. And that was a Kings team that people were really high on, like making moves forward, starting to have that young core or a core that was clicking on all cylinders. They had won like 48 and 46 games over the last couple of seasons, and then boom, it unravels so quickly. They're 13-18 this year, and they lose on a. Do you see that play by Jaden Ivey yesterday?
No, I missed that one.
4-point play with 3 seconds remaining. They lose 114-113.
I see why he got fired.
It seems like when it rains, it pours. And for Mike Brown, he out in Sacramento as the Kings head coach. So pour one out for Mike Brown and the Sacramento Kings. They're not going to be lighting the beam over that.
I'm not going to pour one out.
I won't.
Think
he's not dead. He's alive.
Yeah, well, and like they were kind of a one-hit wonder. Like they had a year where everything clicked.
They were cones.
Well, but they went to the playoffs the one year, and then they ran into Golden State and they got smacked. And then the other year they were like a play-in team. Like they barely got in. It doesn't even count. Yeah. Play-in doesn't count.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. College football playoff wasn't the only losers from the going head-to-head with the NFL. The first round of the college football playoffs, when the Chiefs-Texans were playing and the Steelers-Ravens were playing on Saturday, the Texans-Chiefs drew 15.5 million viewers, while the Steelers-Ravens, 15.4 million viewers. Those outdrew in the television ratings all of the college football playoff games. Tennessee-Ohio State, 14.3. Indiana-Notre Dame on Friday, a standalone, 13.4. Clemson-Texas, 8.6 million. SMU-Penn State, 6.4 million viewers for those games. They're not alone, the college football playoff, in getting beat by the NFL. Did you see what the numbers were for the Christmas Day games?
It was almost triple, wasn't it?
It was almost
quadrupled.
It was quadrupled. It was more than quadrupled. It was almost quintupled there. The NFL drew 24.2 million viewers, average viewers, for their Netflix doubleheader of the Steelers, Chiefs, and Ravens, Texans. Okay? Think about that.
Those weren't even good games.
No.
They were bad.
No. Combined, those games were decided by 48 points. Chiefs won by 19, Ravens won by 29. The NBA has owned Christmas Day, and this is the part that's jarring about the big numbers that the NFL took. The NFL with 24.2 was streaming on Netflix, which is absolutely wild to think that people went to Netflix somewhere brand new to watch games, and they all streamed both of those games. 24.2 average viewership. The average viewership for the NBA's quadruple header, 5.25 million. And that's on ABC and ESPN. Think about that. Like, that's the more accessible avenue to watch those games. The 4 games that were on Christmas Day combined were decided by 25 points. Combined. The Chiefs won by 19, and the Ravens won by 29. And they dwarfed the NBA's ratings. Now, this is not a thing to say the NBA is dying and the viewership is down. Those things, sure, that can be true. But viewership was actually up 84% on Christmas Day for the games combined to last year's ratings.
I have a question, though.
But I think it's hold on. This just says what the NFL is. The NFL is a giant. And the NFL is something that if they want a day, they're going to come and they're going to rip that day away. And if you think for a second that the NFL is going to say, no, this was just a one-off, we'll give it back. No, they're going to come for it, and they're probably going to add a game. The NFL adding a third game and making it a triple header, I could see it happening, adding a fourth game as well, because what they did was they staggered this to where you had those Saturday games where you flipped opponents, right? It was Steelers, Ravens, and Texans, Chiefs on Saturday. Then they went and they played them on a Wednesday. Next year, they won't even need to do that because of the fact that the game is on a Thursday. So you could play, Christmas is on Thursday, so you could play on a Sunday, and then you could pick any imagination of teams that will play on that Thursday. And if the NFL wants to, they're going to put 3 or 4 games on that Thursday on Christmas Day.
Well, and here was going to be my pushback. ESPN is more accessible here, I would say, like in our country. But if you want to get foreign fans, and especially if you want to get younger fans, I might make the argument that Netflix is more accessible. And I'm sure, like, numbers-wise, there's more people that have access to traditional cable and traditional TV. But for people my age, like, it's easier for me to get a game on Netflix than it is to get a game on ESPN or to get a game on ABC.
Yep.
I think the other thing, like...
Well, and here's the thing. We have a text coming in that ESPN not as accessible as Netflix. 70 million households in the United States alone. Netflix is 84.8, but every home can get the ABC games, and that is the big one.
Right. Well, and obviously, like, this has been the NBA's day. It's clear that football is trying to take it over, but I think it also shows that there are more stars, or at least more stars that people care about, than in the NFL than in the NBA. Like, when I think about the NBA, there was only one game on Christmas Day that interested me. It was the Lakers, and it was Golden State, and it's because it's LeBron versus Steph. None of the other games interested me, and I'm a big sports guy. So what does that say about your average sports fan? Well, they're going to be more likely to tune in on the Netflix game, one, because it's easier to get, and I also do think it was a diabolical and smart move by the NFL because now you can't flip channels. If you make it a Fox game, you can flip channels. If you make it CBS, you can flip. You can't flip on Netflix.
And a lot of people would have because the NBA games were far more compelling. They were better games. They were, I mean, that's not even question right
And you're
now.
right. You're 100% you're right, but I also think that the average fan, especially the average female fan, is going to be more likely to tune in to the Kansas City game because Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift has become that big of a deal.
Oh, yes, they have.
And like
the
I'm not
Swifties will unite.
And I'm not saying
the Beyonce being the halftime show of the game following.
Right.
The NFL played this absolutely perfectly, and the fact that that quadruple header was on ABC and ESPN. I mean, that's where the NBA is like, damn. But the people that I don't want to make it bigger than it is because of the fact that this is what the NFL is. The NFL is king. Yeah. And nobody was under the impression that the NBA was close to the viewership or popularity of the NFL. But I think that what was at play there was the NFL, they did a testosterone check right there. Mm-hmm. And they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make it harder for people to get to the game. We're going to put it in a place that people aren't familiar with, and we'll see how many we get. And that number was damn near 5 times what is the most accessible channel in ABC to get, and ESPN, somewhere where people are programmed to go and watch their sports at. And I think the NFL that was a flex by the NFL, and it worked. It worked in a big way. For the National Football League, and the games weren't very good. They just weren't.
It's also a way for Netflix to finally get their toe in the ring too. Like Amazon has been dominating the streaming like sports game, and it's finally Netflix's opportunity. Now Netflix wouldn't be able to bring the Avengers of football together like they did. You're not going to be able to get Manti Te'o and RG3 and Kay Adams and Mina Kimes for your pregame because they all have contracts with different entities. They wouldn't be able to do that if Netflix made a pitch to get one game a week like Amazon Prime has. But I think that Netflix showed that they could do it, and they could do it in a way that would get sports fans to tune in. So I also think that while it's the NFL showing like flexing their muscles of like, look at how big of a deal we are, it's also Netflix of like, all right, now we have a seat at the table too, and we can look to make a bigger push going forward, and don't be shocked when they're all on streaming.
Especially after the debacle that was the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight, which people were saying, like the glitchiness of that. I mean, that fight was buffering. Yeah, they worked out the kinks, and I think that one thing that we can all agree on now is that even from the production level, Jake Paul's boxing matches are just conning us so you can make a butt ton of money.
Right. No, 100%.
Fights aren't good. The product on TV isn't good. Netflix knocked it out of the park with the NFL on Christmas Day. We got NFL Week 17 continuing, already 3 games in the rearview mirror, and we get some Saturday football. We got a triple header of Saturday games tomorrow, and a lot of them have playoff implications. Actually, all of them with playoff implications. And Jim Harbaugh, he's not worried one stinking bit about his L.A. boys in powder blue heading to Foxborough. Danny and Dusty on the Fan. got a triple dip of NFL action tomorrow, Saturday, because the NFL is just saying all the days, ours, we own them now. You've got 10 a.m., Chargers at the Patriots, 1:30, Broncos, Bengals, and Cardinals and Rams at 5 o'clock. That's a good little trio of games that I don't think they were expecting to have the impact that they would at this juncture, because Chargers and Patriots, obviously at 9-6 right now, the Chargers are in the thick of a playoff hunt, and they have an opportunity to solidify themselves as a playoff team. Getting to 10 wins is going to be huge, and that win over Denver just last week is even bigger now for the Chargers. But they do have to go to Foxborough, where it's supposed to be cold. It's going to be a little bit gray, damp. And the boys from L.A., we talk about warm weather teams going to cold weather places. Jim Harbaugh was asked about it and had the most Harbaugh answer imaginable this week.
We had a little rainfall last week, one day of practice. That was great to have that. But most all of us have played in those kind of games, or grew up in that kind of weather, And bottom line is, these guys are young, they're healthy, and their heart pumps warm blood.
Yeah.
Pumps it from the arteries.
Yep.
To the veins, to the tributaries, to the capillaries, throughout their whole body. You just play ball. Been my experience. Now, I might have got that in the wrong order there. It's well documented. I'm not a doctor, but I know it's warm blood. Young, healthy, athletic guys are able to generate.
Jim Harbaugh, I think he would. I think he wants to do like blood transfusion with young people, right?
I don't think that he ever took a class. I think he Michael Scotted that. That is the ultimate start a sentence, not know where it ends, and just keep going, right?
But hey, not a doctor. Well documented. I'm not a doctor. Yep, I know that. We are warm-blooded young men here. We are not cold-blooded. We are warm-blooded young men. Give me that young blood. Yikes. I love Jim Harbaugh.
That's awesome.
He 100% Michael Scotted that. He was like, I know where I kind of want to go with this. Don't know how I'm going to stick the landing. Don't really care if I stick the landing or not, because I always have the not a doctor that I can fall back on. I love that was his response. And now I hope that they beat the Patriots by 40, and that becomes the new mantra. Who's got it better than we do? Nobody! Warm-blooded young men. Let's go, Harbaugh. And he's just speaking from his own experience. He's like, yeah, we all come from places that are cold. Do they? Does every one of your players, he's like, we got rain a day last week. That was nice. I'm pretty sure Justin Herbert's probably adapted to life in Southern California over rainy, dreary Oregon, right? Pretty sure that's probably happened by now. That's the most intriguing part of this game, besides the fact that the Chargers can lock themselves into more solid footing when it comes to the playoffs. I believe they can get a playoff spot with a win, correct?
I believe you're correct.
And then after that one, you have the Broncos and Bengals, which I don't know how, but somehow, some way, both of these teams are still eligible for the playoffs. I know the Broncos are because they're 9-6, and they've played really good football and above their skis this year. I think if anybody were to tell you that the Broncos would have just as good of a season as the Los Angeles Chargers at the beginning of the year, you probably would have said y'all are crazy. But here's Denver, 9-6, and they can officially knock out Cincinnati from the playoff hunt. And then I think with a loss, they've got to hope, because of the way that they knock out the Colts too, because the Colts are 7-8, and the best that they can get to is 9-8 on the year. I mean, those are two big games for both the Chargers and the Broncos. And then the nightcap, look, the Rams, oddly enough, are still in a fight with the Seahawks for the NFC West. And the only way the Seahawks are going to get into the playoffs is if the Rams end up losing out and they win out, or they beat the Rams lose this week to the Cardinals. And even if they beat the Cardinals, I think that the Seahawks, if they win the Week 18, they have a shot based on strength of schedule or strength of opponent's record to get in over the Rams. But I kind of want the Cardinals to win based on I want the Week 18 to have everything on the line. And think of the games that we could have in Week 18 that are determining divisions, right? Or the number one overall seed, for goodness sakes. Mm-hmm. You could have Chiefs and Broncos with playoff implications on the line. The Chiefs, in what they did on Christmas Day, we talked about the ratings. The Kansas City Chiefs offense is fixing itself, just like I had faith that they would do. Mahomes getting the ball out quick. Xavier Worthy's able to play in different positions and different spots on the field now that Hollywood Brown is there. Travis Kelce, who I said this at the very beginning of the year, they're not going to lean on Travis Kelce because they don't need to lean on Travis Kelce. It's a marathon for the Chiefs offense. Mm-hmm. They're trying to figure out how their pieces work. Isaiah Pacheco now back and healthy. Their offensive line is not great, but they're finding ways to play around that, right? Mm-hmm. So that game could have big playoff implications, and it's in Mile High. You have the Vikings and the Lions could be playing for the number one overall seed in the NFC in that game in Week 18. You have the Seahawks and the Rams, which could be for the NFC West title if the Rams lose this week to the Cardinals, which is what I'm kind of hoping that it happens there. I would love for those games to have all of the impact in Week 18. But as it stands tomorrow, you get the Cardinals and the Rams, and we'll see what happens. But good Saturday games? Good Saturday games? All on the NFL Network?
Aside from the beginning one, probably. The one that starts it all off. No offense.
10 a.m.?
Maybe Drake May looks decent. He's been okay this year. You could see him maybe look decent. The Chargers' defense has been taking a small step back.
How many Drake May, Justin Herbert comps will we see? Guys that are athletic, can run, have just got cannons attached to their shoulders, and their stature, the way they're both just massive human beings.
I don't know that I've seen any comparisons between them.
No, I'm saying we're going to see them tomorrow.
See,
they're going to be like, hey, he's got a strong arm. Justin Herbert is way better than Drake May. But strong arm, big, tall, white guy, more athletic than he looks.
See, I kind of think it usually more so goes to Herbert and Knicks because it's the easy, Oregon,
those guys
Oregon.
They're not the same.
Yes, but Oregon, Dusty, you're not understanding. Oregon.
Oregon.
Compare.
Dude,
come on. There are legitimate experts that compare Mariota to Dylan Gabriel. Yeah. Again, Oregon.
They both wear number 8. Bo Nix, Justin Herbert wear number 10.
They're both from Hawaii.
Yep.
Compare. Compare.
The similarities are there.
The similarities are endless. They're both human beings.
Yeah.
They're American.
Yeah. Both Heisman finalists. One won. The other did not.
I'll tell you right now, I'm going to be locked in on the Rams and Cardinals because I need my Seahawks to be playing for something.
Right?
I need
Let's get that. Let's get that.
Even if they only put up 6 points.
What we do need to get to, though, is how the Seahawks put themselves in this place.
Because they're stupid.
Well, do you want the bright spot? Second half shutout.
They won. The
Second
defense,
half shutout.
The defense has looked good at times.
I don't. Yeah.
They've looked good. They've looked good more than they've looked bad.
Boy, I think it was a bigger indictment on the Chicago Bears, and we'll get to that after Will with SportsCenter.
This is a Football Friday edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, 3 games in the NFL this Saturday. First, Chargers travel east to take on the Patriots in New England. The Chargers are favored by 4.5. The total for that one is set at 42.5. Kickoff at 10 on the NFL Network. Then the Broncos travel to Cincy to take on the Bengals. Bengals are trying to keep their very slim playoff hopes alive. Cincy favored by 3.5, total at 49.5. Kick at 1:30. That's also going to be on the NFL Network. And the last game features an in-division matchup between the Cardinals and the Rams. Arizona, they're trying to play spoiler. LA is favored at home by 6.5. Total is set at 47.5. Kickoff for that one at 5 p.m. also on the NFL Network. One bowl game in action right now. It's the Birmingham Bowl. Vanderbilt is up 14-10 on Georgia Tech. 12:39 left to go in that one. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080. The Fan.
Got a smart speaker? It's the
Last night we saw the Seattle Seahawks pick up their 9th win of the season against the Chicago Bears. 6-3 that final. Game was hard to watch offensively, really from start to finish. No, I will not say from start to finish. I thought that was a great opening drive for Seattle. They marched the ball right on down the field against the Bears defense. And I was like, points. We're going to get some points out of this game. Boy, was I wrong. 6-3 the final score. You know the last time that the Bears allowed 10 or fewer points? You know when that was?
They said it wasn't against the Seahawks last time they played, was it?
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was. No, the last time that the Chicago Bears allowed 10 or fewer points was October 10th of 2021.
Yuck.
Oh, no, excuse me. January 2nd of 2022. Same season, they beat the New York Giants 29-3. They went 6-10 that year, and it was the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton, who stepped in and guided them to their 29-3 win. Last night, a 6-3 victory for the Seattle Seahawks. There's some real questions right now with Seattle's offense and the rhythm of their passing game with Ryan Grubb. And you mentioned this earlier, that it's basically two camps, right? Either you don't like Geno or you don't like DK Metcalf. And can I just say, I think both of those things can be true at the same time of where the biggest fault lies with where their offense is. Because there comes a point where you've got to just start force-feeding a guy, right? And
Right.
3 targets for DK Metcalf in that game, that's far too few because 3 targets, he had 3 catches for 42 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're going up against a defense that has been absolutely sliced and diced over the course of this year, and especially since Matt Eberflus got fired, we've talked about how their defense has had a regression. They gave up, 38, 30, and 34 games their last 3. And one of them was to a completely decimated San Francisco 49ers offense.
Mm-hmm.
They gave up 38 points to. That is the discouraging part. The great part is Seattle got a win, and their defense played really damn well. Caleb Williams has been risk-averse in throwing the football. Reek Woolen ends up sealing that game with an interception and putting that thing on ice. Giving up only 3 points in an NFL game, really damn hard. Yeah. Really dang hard. Except for the fact that the New England Patriots also did it to the Chicago Bears earlier in the season when they were only able to muster 3 points. Their offense has not been good. And you can see why Shane Waldron gets fired. You have your interim offensive coordinator then boosted to interim head coach. You see why their offense has been bad. But Seattle's offense, that's why it's the discouraging part of just a 6-3 victory. You keep your playoff hopes alive, but I saw this, and I know that there's some Seahawks fans that are out there that are like, man, kind of just want this thing to end.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm always going to be a glass half full in the fact of just give me the opportunity in the playoffs. Crazier things have happened, right? The Beastquake team wasn't supposed to win, wasn't even supposed to be there, yet they found a way to win. My issue and what's so frustrating is the offensive line has been atrocious, and it's been atrocious for years. Like, this is an issue that has not been fixed. In particular, it's been on the interior part of the offensive line. It feels like with Cross and when Lucas can stay healthy, it doesn't happen much. But when he is healthy, it feels like those two kind of lock down the tackle spots. The guard and center play has been bad. And then you start off the game, you're not having K9 out there, you're going Charbonnet and McIntosh, and you run the ball down Chicago's throat. Now, they're not a great defense, but that's still a positive sign. Like, hey, you can run the football. And then all of a sudden, the rest of the game, Chicago makes an adjustment. You can't run the ball at all. You're not force-feeding DK. You're not force-feeding Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's a top 5 wide receiver in the league right now when it comes to receiving yards. He already has over 1,000 yards.
Yep.
And you're not finding a way to get them the football, yet you're running a screen pass for Pharaoh Brown. Like, that doesn't make sense in my eyes. And there's a lot of blame to go around. You're an average football team. It is what it is. You have holes, and you need to fix those holes. And as a Seahawks fan, it does feel like you're building towards fixing those holes. It feels like you have the right guy in McDonald to make the changes that need to be done, because this defense struggled really badly in the middle part of the season when they had a couple injuries go their way. They make a big change. They get rid of their top tackler. They just straight up cut him. They make a trade to go get Ernest Jones. They promote a rookie, right? And there have been big changes that have made. Witherspoon in that game was unbelievable. He was all over Bears wide receivers, and then the plays that he was making in the screen game where he was getting blocked by bigger receivers in Allen and Odunze, and he straight up won those one-on-one battles.
I'll tell you what, that was the most, like, if you wanted something to hang your hat on, Witherspoon was incredible. Like, you never want a corner to be leading your team in tackles. When he has 3 tackles for loss, you'll take it.
Yep.
You're going to take that 10 times out of 10, man. He was very impressive. And I also think, though, that also goes to how broken the Bears are and the predictability of the Bears. Formationally and tendency-wise, he sniffed everything out. You don't do that as a corner unless there are wicked tendencies that you're catching on film. But that also goes to Mike McDonald has his guys ready to go. Right. And he has them coached up because he was making tackles for loss. He sacked Caleb Williams at one point. Like, in Caleb Williams, my goodness, he may not throw interceptions, but that man takes a ton of sacks. And a new offensive mind cannot come fast enough for the Chicago Bears.
They need a lineman.
Coming out of Christmas, it was Pete Carroll is interested in the job. I love Pete Carroll. I think he's a great coach. You do not want a 73-year-old to come in, because all you're doing is you're saying that by the end of your rookie deal, that quarterback is going to be on a fourth head coach, because you have Eberflus, Thomas, Carroll, and then whoever the next head coach is going to be. That is just a Band-Aid. Go and Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
If he's interested in that job, go give it to Ben Johnson and see what he can do. Even though I would use caution with Ben Johnson, because Ben Johnson is also the offensive coordinator for the best offensive line in football, and that is always a scary proposition. How good and creative can you be when you have one of the worst offensive lines in football, not the best offensive line in football?
Right. I think the other thing with this Bears team offensively is you went into the season thinking that you got all this help for Williams, and it doesn't feel like it's there. Like, the offensive line, everyone that you banked on taking a step forward, not a single one of them did. The run game with Swift is non-existent, so there's nothing there that's really helping him. Keenan Allen, it feels like it's done, man. Like, it really feels like it's done. DJ Moore, it took him halfway through the season before he stopped pouting, stop being a baby. And then, like, Rome Odunze, like, he's a very good wide receiver. He's going to be a very good wide receiver. He's a rookie. It takes time. It takes all this time to build.
A couple dropsies too.
Right. And so, like, there's a lot of people who don't really watch the games. They see the highlights and then they go, oh, well, you got to blame Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams is not perfect. He has his faults. When I watched that football game, he got sacked, 7 times, 8 times?
Yeah.
Two of them were on him. Two of them were good plays by Seahawks defensive linemen. That's why they get paid a lot of money. And then there's another 3 or so that are in there where it's like, well, it's kind of on him. It's also kind of on them. Like, maybe he grows out of it. Does the O-line figure it out as they get going? Is it a coverage sack? Like, there's things that he still has to do. But to write him off, that's insane to me. But to still think that he can reach his peak, that also seems a little bit insane to me.
I think that with better coaching and improved offensive line play, a lot of the ills of Caleb Williams can be fixed, right? Because a lot of those sacks are, you get the right coach in who can get through and prepare Caleb Williams the right way. You're checking out of a lot of the plays that end up going negative for the Chicago Bears offense.
Right.
And that is so much of quarterback play that we just get overlooked, is the quarterback and play caller preparation and being on the same page. It gets you out of so many negative plays, whether it is in your run game or sacks. It gets you out of a mess, and that is huge. And they just don't have it. They didn't have it at the beginning of the year with Waldron. We all knew that heading into the year. JSN said it on, Media Row at the Super Bowl last year. Good luck with that. It was kind of doomed from a play calling perspective. And then I give the Bears credit. They did try to go out and put weapons around him, right? Keenan Allen is old. Rome Odunze is having a lot of his touches taken away from him because Caleb Williams is like, well, we got to feed kind of everybody here. DJ Moore was pouting because he liked Justin Fields because guess what Justin Fields did?
Fed him the
when
ball.
he threw the ball to DJ Moore, right? That's why I loved the fact that the Commanders this year said, yeah, we're not going to go and overspend on a wide receiver for Jaden Daniels, because a young quarterback with a dominant or a diva wide receiver, it does not teach him how to quarterback. It teaches him who to feed, and in the loudest mouth gets the food first, right? I think that it is one of the issues that we see in Philadelphia, right? With A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has earned the right to distribute the ball to whoever he sees fit.
Right.
But we see A.J. Brown, he's got issues with how big or small they may be. And I tend to think it's relatively small. But you see these things percolate when you have a quarterback who, and Jalen Hurts, the dude has won. Right? Usually that's what it takes is winning. Well, he's still a young quarterback, and the hierarchy in an NFL locker room is real. And the fact that A.J. Brown's like, nope, I want more touches, I want mine, that is where a young quarterback, and then we have this pushing and pulling. Is the organization protecting the quarterback too much? Is it the head coach, and is Nick Sirianni an idiot? Now, sometimes it's as simple as the hierarchy of an NFL locker room can get sideways on you. And I think you see that in Chicago right now, in that Caleb Williams has a paralysis by analysis of which guy he needs to kind of force feed the ball. But on the flip side, you would hope Seattle would force feed DK Metcalf when things are stalling out offensively, right?
Seems like a pretty easy game plan. Oh, I have the biggest wide receiver and the strongest in the NFL.
Yeah.
Why don't I just throw him the ball? The other thing about it, when they did throw him the ball, like the one that I'm thinking of, DK made an incredible catch. It was like a 20-yard little out that he ran, and Geno Smith basically put the ball on the ground. Like, if DK didn't have an incredible finger strength catch, DK only ends up having 2 catches and probably only around 20 yards. I want to say that play was about a 15 to 20-yard play.
Yeah.
If he puts it on DK can turn and run and make someone miss or run through someone. And so there's a lot of frustration right now at DK because of a penalty that he took. That's the first type of penalty like that he's taken since week 2, right? Like, he was going at it with Tyreek Stevens, and you don't love that. Be smarter, especially for the Seahawks, who are one of the higher penalized teams in the NFL, if not the highest. But at the same time, I want some fight out of my guys. I want some
dog
fire.
in you.
Yeah. It's clear that he's not going to get pushed around, and I'm okay with that. And it feels almost like at times him not wanting to be pushed around gets viewed at negatively by certain people in the football community. And I just disagree with it. Not that I am completely team DK over team Geno. They both have their things that they do well, and they both have their things that they need to work on, one more so than the other. But at the end of the day, you're going to go into LA this next week. You might have a shot at the playoffs. You might not. To me, it's all about finding a way to get the ball to DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Show everyone that you can find a way to get them the ball. And sometimes, even when they're covered, they're not covered. Throw a 50-50 ball up for DK every once in a while. I'm okay if that's the interception that you throw. I'm not okay when you have, no offense to Pharaoh Brown, but Pharaoh Brown double covered in the red zone, and you try and force it in there, or try and force one into A.J. Barner, right? Force the ball to your premier stars. Force them to your top wide receivers on the edge.
Hey, the big news, Seahawks, doesn't matter what it looks like. It's a win. They're still alive, albeit by the thinnest of margins. They're still alive with the Thursday Night Football win 6-3. 6-3 in Chicago. All right, we had media availability down here today in Eugene. Tosh Lupoi taking the podium. Don't hear from the coordinators all that often in extended interviews, but for the Rose Bowl media availability, we heard from Tosh Lupoi today what the Oregon Ducks were focusing on as Ohio State, Tennessee, and the rest of the first round was playing. Danny and Dusty on the Fan.
It's time.
All right, this is the final show for me for the old year. I won't be back on these airwaves until the new year, 2025, as I'm going to be heading down for the Rose Bowl on this weekend and not going to be on the show Monday, Tuesday, but you can hear me in the pregame show leading up to kickoff between Oregon and Ohio State, where I'll be on the sidelines with Jerry and Jorgie on the call and Joey Mack hosting our pre- and post-game for the Oregon Sports Network. We heard from Tosh Lupoi today as part of the Rose Bowl media availability, and we hear quite often from a lot of from the coordinators over the course of a week and position coaches and stuff like that, but it's not usually the extended and longer form, which is what we got today from Coach Lupoi. And I found it interesting when you heard Lanning in his Rose Bowl media availability, and now Lupoi, of how their scouting kind of took place. And we talked about this a lot of would you rather be the 5 seed or get the 1 seed? And it was always to me like, no, you want to win, you want to get a bye, you want to be a conference champ. Is the path harder? Absolutely it is. But both Lanning and Lupoi have mentioned over the last week that one thing that they did from the onset is they went into self-scouting mode. And when you have this elongated break, I think something that to take into consideration with Oregon, right? They played the 8-game gauntlet of Big Ten conference play, right? No other team in the conference had that. No team next year will have that. 8 straight conference games, no bye week. They had the bye week before the Washington game. And when you have a bye week, it is self-scouting. You look within. All right, what do we need to do? How do we get better? What are our tendencies that we need to break? Where are teams trying to expose us, and what can we do? Something that Oregon benefits greatly from is you had that self-introspect when it was the bye week before Washington. Then you played 2 quick games, and you had the ability to sit back and say, all right, we looked at it, and we had just 2 games. One of them went about as good as it could in the UW game. And then we saw Penn State came, and we had a really good team that they were firing away, and they hit us with tempo. They hit us in some soft spots. They exposed some of the things that we needed to take a look back and sit back and look at. He said that Big Ten championship game, it was like they did a good job. They out-executed. I said this earlier in the show when talking about Ohio State and the Rose Bowl matchup. Tempo has given Oregon problems, and it gave Oregon problems in the Big Ten championship game. And I feel like the first 5 days of that, okay, exhale, we have a bye, we know what we are off. It was, all right, how do we rectify that? How do we get lined up more quickly? How do we end up putting ourselves in a position where we can still disguise and bring pressure from places that offenses least expect it, but do it against a tempo team? Because if I'm Ohio State, that's what I'm keying on, is we've got one of the best up-tempo play callers in college football history in Chip Kelly, and a team that's where they have struggled on the defensive side is when teams try to get up to the line quick and go. And it's interesting that both Lupoi and Lanning said that it was a lot of self-scouting the first few days, but they also had the ability to start scouting both Tennessee and Ohio State before those 2 teams played, and that's a big advantage because you look at their tendencies and you say these are what their tendencies have been over the course of the season, and then you see the best shot, which is that game, and then you can throw out a lot of stuff and you can cherry pick. This is what Ohio State believes is their best offense, and the preparation for Ohio State and Tennessee, that was happening before that game was even played, and now you can just narrow it down a little bit more. I think that it's going to be really interesting to see kind of from the defensive standpoint. It really is. They're going to line up, and it's going to be execution is what wins the game, right? On the offensive side, you can learn a lot about how you think Ohio State is going to try to defend you based on the extra preparation and being healthy in that rest week and that work week for the Oregon Ducks. All right, I will talk to you guys next from Pasadena, California. I'm excited for the college football playoff quarterfinals. I'm excited for the Rose Bowl. We will see exactly how this thing will play out. It's hard to beat a great team twice. No primetime today. We're handing off to ESPN Radio coming up next. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Oregon Ducks football is on the Fan.
Back to